They said the river of Udi could swallow anything, boats, secrets, even people, and never whisper a word. Yet one evening, under a sky heavy with orange light, the river decided to speak. It began with a single cry. A girl's voice tore through the quiet air, echoing off the bamboo groves. Then came the sound of splashing, frantic and short-lived, followed by silence so deep it made the crickets stop singing. On the bank, the woman adjusted her scarf, her lips curling into a smile that hid more venom than pity. Now, she whispered, my daughter shall marry the prince. Not her. Her name was Mama Neka, a woman whose beauty had long turned to bitterness. Years ago, she had been second wife to Chief Okoye, a man respected from hill to river. When he died, his household split in two, one half belonging to Mama Neka and her spoiled child, Neka, the other to the ghost of his first wife and her quiet daughter, Adana. Adana grew under scorn like a flower forcing itself through stone. While Neka learned how to pout, paint her nails, and perfect a laugh that sounded expensive, Adana fetched water, scrubbed clay pots, then sang songs that made even weary elders smile. The villagers adored her. They said her laughter had warmth, that her humility calmed quarrels. But love from the people can feel like insult to a jealous heart. Mama Neka saw how men greeted Adana first at the stream, how elders praised her, and how even the wind seemed to favor her side of the compound. So when word spread that the Prince of Udi would hold a grand dance to choose his bride, Mama Neka's envy became fire. The palace drummers were already testing their skins, seamstresses worked night after night, every mother polished her daughter like brass. Yet no matter how much oil Neka rubbed on her legs or how many beads her mother piled on her neck, people still whispered, it is Adana the prince will notice. The gods favor gentle hearts. Those words were salt in Mama Neka's wound. And jealousy, once it finds a home, never sleeps. One dawn, she woke with a plan. By morning, her smile was as sweet as palm wine turned sour. She found Adana sweeping the compound, dust rising like tiny ghosts around her ankles. My child, she said, soft as silk, come, let us go fishing. You must learn how to feed your husband one day. Adana's heart leapt. Husband. No one had ever spoken to her that kindly. She wiped her brow, grateful for this sudden tenderness. Perhaps, she thought, her stepmother's heart had finally softened. Together, they walked toward the river, baskets balanced on their heads, birds calling from the trees. The path wound through tall grass that brushed their calves. When they reached the shore, the water glimmered like glass. A canoe waited there, tied loosely to a branch, its rope twitching with the current. Adana stepped in fast, steady as a dancer. Mama Neka followed, her bangles jingling in rhythm with the paddles. The canoe drifted to the middle, where the world looked split, sky above, mere below. Lean closer, the woman said. See how the fish sparkle beneath us. Adana bent forward, her eyes wide with wonder. For a heartbeat, peace floated between them. Then the river shivered. A shove, quick, hard, merciless. Mama. The girl's cry sliced the air as her body hit the water. Waves closed over her head. Bubbles broke the surface, then vanished. The river grew still again, pretending innocence. Mama Neka tightened her scarf. Let destiny choose now, she muttered and paddled back alone. That evening, when the sun dipped low, she told the neighbors that Adana had slept while fetching water. A terrible tragedy, she sighed, crocodile tears glittering in her eyes. The villagers mourned, drums beat slow, and for many days, the river carried her name in whispers. But rivers remember. And destiny does not drown so easily. The prince's celebration. Far from the morning, the palace buzzed with excitement. Lanterns lined the courtyard, a drum standard, the scent of roasted yam and honey filled the air. Prince Obinna, son of King Okofo, was finally of age. By tradition, he must find a bride not through politics or wealth, but through the rhythm of dance. The woman whose spirit matched his in motion would wear the royal beads. Every maiden dreamed of that moment, including Neka. Mama Neka polished her daughter till she shone, feeding her stories of how beauty conquers destiny. When you dance, let the prince feel your pride, she said. No one remembers kindness. They remember splendor. Neka believed her. But on the night of the contest, splendor failed her. Her steps were stiff, her smile forced. The prince's eyes drifted away long before her turn ended. He watched, instead, the horizon, as though waiting for someone the gods had promised him. And perhaps, in a way, they had. Beneath the river. While drums pounded above the earth, below the water Adana drifted in darkness. The current hummed like lullabies from forgotten ancestors. She could no longer tell if she was alive. Just as her lungs burned for air, a hand, warm and luminous, touched her cheek. Her eyes opened to a world made of light. Lilies glowed, fishes swam like sparks, and before her stood a woman dressed in flowing wrappers of gold and coral. Mother. Adana whispered. The spirit smiled, sorrow in her eyes yet peace in her voice. Yes, my daughter. I have watched you suffer, but the gods are not asleep. Your journey is not over. Adana's tears drifted upward like pearls. Am I dead? Not yet, said the spirit. But now, you must rise. Destiny cannot be erased by envy. She raised a calabash that shimmered with blue light. Drink, then you shall walk again among the living. But heed me, when the royal drums beat 6 times, this gift will fade. Live before the final echo. Adana nodded. The spirit poured the glowing water into her palms. It tasted like morning rain. A warmth spread through her veins, her torn wrapper changed into silk woven with starlight, her hair shimmered with beads that whispered softly. Then the spirit's voice echoed, Go, my child. Let truth reveal itself. The river brightened, swallowed her in a burst of light, and Adana was gone. At the palace gates. A sudden wind swept through the celebration. The torches flickered. The drummers hesitated as a figure appeared at the gate. The crowd turned, gasping. A maiden stood there, wrapped in gold that glowed like the sun after rain. Her skin carried the color of polished bronze, her eyes deep and calm as the river. Even the prince forgot to breathe. Who is she? Someone whispered. The king smiled knowingly. Perhaps the gods have joined our celebration. The prince approached, heart beat loud as the drums. May I have this dance? He asked. Adana bowed slightly, her lips curving into the faintest smile. When their hands touched, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. The drums roared back to life. They moved together as if the rhythm had been waiting for them since birth, his steps strong, hers graceful, the two weaving a story older than the kingdom itself. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Neka watched, rage twisting her face. Mama Neka's nails dug into her palms. Impossible, she hissed. That girl is dead. But as the drums thundered on, first beat, second, third, Adana's glow only grew brighter. Somewhere deep within the palace walls, the river spirit smiled. The drums shook the palace like thunder rolling across the earth. Each beat sent a vibration through the night, every rhythm binding the prince and the mysterious maiden closer together. By the 4th drum, even the moon seemed to lean closer, watching. Adana's golden gown shimmered as she twirled, her feet barely touching the ground. The crowd watched in awe, whispering that no mortal could move like that. The prince's eyes never left her. It was as though the universe had folded itself into this single dance, and in her every turn, he saw the answer to his restless soul. But beneath her grace, Adana's heart pounded. Her mother's warning echoed, when the royal drums beat 6 times, the magic will fade. Each beat was a countdown. The 5th drum boomed like thunder. Adana gasped, feeling the air shift. Her hands trembled. The shimmering beads on her hair flickered like dying stars. I must go, she whispered, pulling away. The prince reached for her. Wait, I don't even know your name. She hesitated, her lips parting, but before she could speak, the sixth drum sounded. A tremor of light burst around her. The golden fabric on her body began to dim, threads unraveling like smoke in the wind. Adana turned and fled through the courtyard, her bare feet silent on the marble floor. Stop her, shouted someone, but the prince raised his hand. No, he said softly. Let her go. He ran after her instead. Through the garden, past the sacred fig trees, she darted, the glow fading from her skin with every step. When she reached the edge of the palace path, something slipped from her wrist, a golden bangle, etched with the mark of her late mother's clan. It clattered softly onto the grass. She turned for a brief second, her eyes meeting the prince's from afar, one look, powerful enough to carve itself into his memory forever. Then she vanished into the darkness. The prince reached the spot where she had been, chest heaving. He bent down, picked up the bangle, and pressed it to his heart. I will find you, he murmured. Even if I must touch every river, every hill, and every dream. The prince's quest. At dawn, the palace buzzed like a disturbed hive. Messengers rushed out on horseback, carrying the prince's decree, the one who owns this golden bangle shall be my queen. Bring every maiden from every village. By noon, the roads filled with hopeful faces. Girls arrived in colorful wrappers, bangles jingling, smiles forced to hide nerves. Songs filled the air, each maiden daring to imagine herself the chosen one. But far away, in a small hut by the riverside, Adana sat quietly beside an old woman who had found her fainting at dawn. Her magic was gone now. The gown had faded into an ordinary cloth, her hair tangled, her skin marked with dried tears. Child, the old woman said, stirring a pot of herbs, you carry sorrow in your eyes. What chased you into the forest? Adana smiled faintly. Not what, Mama. Who? The old woman watched her for a long moment. Then whoever it is, the gods will handle them. You must rest now. But Adana couldn't rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the prince's face, his kind eyes, his outstretched hand, the longing in his voice. She touched her bare wrist and remembered the missing bangle. He will find it, she whispered. And when he does, he will know I'm real. The stepmother's panic. Back in Chief Okoye's compound, the news hit like thunder. The prince's guards had arrived, announcing that every maiden must try on a single golden bangle. Whoever it fit would become queen. Mama Neka froze, the calabash in her hand slipping and shattering on the ground. Water spilled across her feet, but she didn't feel it. Her daughter, Neka, gasped. Mother, the bangle, it's hers. Silence. Mama Neka snapped. Her eyes darted wildly, her mind racing. If that girl dares to show her face, everything we have will be gone. But she's gone, Neka whispered. You said, I said what needed to be said, the woman hissed, clutching her daughter's wrist. But if she breathes still, then she must not see the dawn. Do you understand me? The girl nodded weakly. That night, when the moon climbed high, Mama Neka lit a pot of black clay, tossing red cloth and crushed coconut inside. The smoke coiled like a living serpent, twisting into faces that whispered in tongues no human should hear. She murmured incantations, her eyes rolling white. Spirits of the river, spirits of the night, hide her from the prince's sight. Let her vanish like mist, let her beauty turn to shadow. The pot hissed, spitting sparks. The wind outside moaned like a dying voice. But at that same moment, somewhere in the forest, Adana stirred. The calabash her mother's spirit had given her began to glow faintly. The flame beside her flickered, bending as if in reverence. She felt a warmth rise through her chest, a shield woven from love, not hate. The curse shattered like clay under sunlight. The smoke around Mama Neka's pot turned violent, coiling back and slapping her across the face. She screamed and stumbled back, clutching her chest. Who protects this girl? She gasped, panting. Only the spirits knew. The trial of the bangle. The next morning, a royal trumpets blared across the villages. The guard stood tall in the marketplace, holding the golden bangle high on a royal stool. By order of Prince Obina, the herald shouted. Let every maiden step forward. Girls lined up one after another. The bangle was placed upon their ankles, too small, too loose, or simply rejected by fate itself. Finally, Neka stepped forward, her skin glistening from palm oil, her eyes sharp with desperation. Your search is over, she said proudly. I am the one the prince seeks. The crowd murmured. She bent down and slid her foot into the bangle. For 1 second, it seemed to fit. Then crack. It split clean in two. The people gasped. The guards exchanged uneasy looks. The gods reject her, muttered an elder, shaking his head. This is not the one. Mama Neka's face drained of color. She dropped to her knees, clutching the broken piece in disbelief. No, no, this cannot be. Spirits, you mock me. But the spirits were silent. The guards gathered the broken bangle and left, their faces grim. The prince, upon hearing the news, clenched his jaw. Then she is still out there, he said. And I will not rest until I find her. Destiny strikes again. That evening, while Adana fetched water from the stream, she heard the sound of hooves. A royal procession appeared, guards, horses, and at the front, the prince himself. His eyes searched the riverside until they found her. For a moment, time itself stopped. She looked so simple, dressed in a plain wrapper, hair unadorned, yet there was something about her that glowed, something the river had refused to wash away. The prince dismounted slowly, walking toward her, each step heavy with recognition. I have searched every corner of this kingdom, he said softly. Yet my heart tells me it has been waiting here, by this river. Adana lowered her gaze. I am no one, my prince. Just a maiden who fetches water. He smiled faintly. Then the river hides its treasures well. From his pocket he pulled the broken bangle. It gleamed faintly in the sunlight. Tell me, he said, have you seen the woman who owns this? Adana's fingers twitched. Her throat tightened. Words rose in her chest, of the truth, long buried. Before she could speak, the voice shrieked behind them. She lies. The people turned. There stood Mama Neka, eyes blazing, veil whipping in the wind. Beside her was Neka, trembling but silent. The air thickened. Even the river seemed to pause. The stepmother pointed a shaking finger. She bewitched you, my prince. She used charms from the underworld to deceive your eyes. The prince frowned. Is that so? Adana stood tall, tears shimmering in her eyes. No, my prince. I live because the river refused to keep my secret. Her words hit the crowd like thunder. The prince's eyes widened. What do you mean? And with a trembling breath, Adana began to tell the truth. The crowd froze. Not a drumbeat, not a breath moved. Even the wind seemed to hold its silence. Adana's eyes glistened in the sunlight as she faced the prince, her voice steady though her heart trembled. You wish to know who owns the bangle, my prince, she said softly. Then I must tell you everything. Her words fell like stones into still water, spreading ripples of truth through every ear that listened. I am Adana, daughter of late Chief Okoye's first wife. I was raised under this woman's roof, she pointed to Mama Neka, but never under her love. On the morning of the festival, she lured me to the river with gentle words and kind smiles. I thought, perhaps, she had finally chosen to see me as her daughter. But when I leaned to look into the water, she pushed me. A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Women covered their mouths, and men muttered curses beneath their breath. The prince's jaw tightened. His knuckles whitened around the bangle. Mama Neka's voice cracked, lies. She lies to turn you against us. My daughter was chosen by the gods. Enough, the prince thundered, his voice echoing across the water. The gods choose no one who builds their beauty upon another's grave. The stepmother stumbled back, shaking her head in disbelief. You think the spirits will stand with her, she screamed. You think they care for bastards. But then, the river stirred. The spirit's return. A hush swept over the crowd as ripples spread across the surface. The water glowed faintly, silver light rising like fog. Whispers carried through the air, voices ancient, soft, and sorrowful. From the center of the river, a glowing figure began to rise. Her wrapper shimmered with the hues of dawn, and her eyes burned like lanterns in a storm. It was Adana's mother, her spirit, radiant and calm, yet fierce as the gods themselves. Mama. Adana whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. The crowd dropped to their knees. Even the prince bowed, his head low in reverence. The spirit's voice carried like a melody made of thunder. No lies, she said. No deceit. The child speaks the truth. Mama Neka screamed, covering her face, but the spirit's light pierced through her trembling hands. Mama Neka, the spirit thundered, her tone shaking the air itself. You wrapped envy around your heart like a snake. You raised deceit as your daughter and fed it the blood of innocence. Did you think the river would hide your sin forever? The stepmother fell to her knees, eyes wild. Forgive me, spirit. I was blinded by fear. I only wanted my child to live well. The spirit's expression softened briefly. You wanted her to rise, but you buried another to do it. The gods do not build crowns on graves. The water rose around her like a wall, circling both women, the living and the dead. Adana stepped forward, trembling. Mother, please, don't destroy her. Let her carry her shame and learn. The spirit looked at her daughter for a long moment, pride shining through her sorrow. Your heart remains pure, even now. That is why destiny chose you. Then the light shifted. The spirit stretched out her hand, pointing at Mama Neka. Rise, woman. The river will not take your life, but it will not forget your name. Wherever you go, shame shall follow you like a shadow. Every mirror will show you not your face, but the daughter you tried to drown. The river's glow dimmed. The spirit turned to Adana one last time. Go, my child. Walk in light. Your crown awaits. Adana fell to her knees, weeping. Don't leave me again. Her mother smiled faintly. I never left. Every ripple, every breeze, every star above your window, that was me watching. And with a swirl of light, the spirit dissolved into mist, her voice echoing softly, truth may sink for a moment, but it always rises again. The princess decreed silence. The crowd, still kneeling, dared not lift their heads until the prince spoke. He turned to Adana, his voice steady, his eyes filled with something deeper than admiration, reverence. I have had enough. This bangle belongs to you, he said, holding it out. Adana reached forward, and as the golden band touched her skin, it mended itself, the cracks sealing with light. The crowd gasped again, some shouting praises, others bowing in awe. The prince lifted her hand high. By the gods who have witnessed today, I declare Adana, daughter of light, my chosen bride and queen of this kingdom. The people erupted in cheers, their voices thundering across the hills. Adana. Adana. The true queen. Drums beat wildly, faster than ever before, not for battle or contest but for celebration. Flowers were thrown into the air. The young girls danced in circles around Adana, chanting her name like a song of triumph. But as joy filled the air, the stepmother crawled backward, her hair disheveled, her face streaked with tears and dust. She looked up at the prince, her voice breaking. "Your Majesty, please, I beg you. Show mercy." The prince's expression hardened. Mercy belongs to those who seek truth. You sought deceit. He turned to his guards. "Let her leave this land. Take nothing with her but her shame." The guard stepped forward. Mama Neka tried to speak again, but no sound came. The people turned away from her, whispering among themselves. Even her daughter, Neka, stood frozen, eyes brimming with tears. "Mother," Neka whispered. "What have we done?" But her mother could not answer. The weight of her sins had stolen her voice. The river's blessing as the sun began to set, painting the sky gold and crimson, Adana stood beside the river once more. The crowd had returned to the palace, preparing for the coronation, but she remained, alone, quiet, gazing into the rippling water. She saw her reflection, glowing faintly, and within it, another face, her mother's smile. The wind carried the scent of lilies, and the river shimmered softly as if whispering a lullaby only she could hear. "Thank you," Adana murmured, "for never letting me drown." Somewhere deep within the current, a voice answered, tender and calm, "You were never meant to sink, my child. You were meant to rise." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but they were no longer tears of grief, they were tears of peace. When she returned to the palace, the people were waiting. The prince stood tall, dressed in royal robes, his eyes bright with pride. He reached out his hand once more, the same way he had at the dance, and said, "Now, will you dance with me again, not as a stranger, but as my queen?" Adana smiled, her heart steady. "Yes, my prince. Let the drums speak of truth this time." The drummers struck their first beat, and as the rhythm filled the courtyard, Adana stepped forward, not in magic, but in grace. Her laughter rose through the night, warm and free, like the song of a river that had finally found its voice. The curse of envy far from the palace, on the edge of the forest, Mama Neka and Neka walked barefoot along the dusty path. The night was cold, and crickets sang from the shadows. "Mother," Neka whispered, "where will we go now?" The woman didn't answer. She stared ahead, seeing things that weren't there, flashes of the river, the glowing spirit, the daughter she had wronged. Her eyes glimmered faintly, not from tears but from something haunting, something that would never fade. Each time she looked into a puddle, Adana's face stared back. Each time she blinked, the river roared in her ears. That was her punishment, not death, but remembrance. The dawn of a queen. The next morning, the kingdom gathered at the palace square. The air hummed with drums, flutes, and joy. Adana stood beside the prince, the crown of coral resting lightly upon her braided hair. When the people cheered, she didn't raise her chin high in pride. She lowered her head humbly, whispering a quiet prayer. "May I rule with kindness, not vengeance. May I remember what pain feels like so I never cause it to another." The prince smiled at her, hearing her words though she hadn't spoken them aloud. "Your heart," he said, "is what makes you worthy of this crown." And when he placed the final bead upon her wrist, the golden bangle glowed once more, not with magic this time, but with legacy. The same river that once tried to bury her now sang softly in the distance, its waves lapping like applause. The drums quieted. The celebration slowed, leaving only the hum of wind and the soft rustle of palm leaves. The stars hung low that night, as though the heavens themselves bent down to witness the dawn of a new queen. Adana stood on the palace balcony, wrapped in golden cloth, the river glimmering in the distance. She could still hear it, faintly, whispering like an old friend who had told her every secret. The night smelled of peace. Yet deep within her, she remembered every moment of her pain. The cold water. The betrayal. The quiet strength it took not to hate. "Your Majesty," said an old woman, bowing behind her. "The people await your words." Adana turned, her gaze soft. "Let them gather by the courtyard. Tonight, we speak not of power, but of truth." The queen's first words torches lined the courtyard, their flames flickering like living hearts. The villagers gathered, faces shining with hope. The prince stood beside Adana, his hand gently resting over hers. She stepped forward. The drums ceased. Silence spread, powerful and complete. "My people," she began, her voice carrying with the grace of a river current. "Many of you know my story, how envy tried to bury me and how the river brought me home. But this is not just my story. It is the story of every soul that has been wronged, every child who has been forgotten, every heart that has been told it does not deserve to shine." The crowd murmured softly, heads nodding. "Evil may rise quickly," she continued, "but it falls faster than truth can drown. What my stepmother did to me was born from fear. Fear that her child would not be chosen, fear that she herself would be forgotten. But fear cannot win where love is steadfast. I did not survive because I was the strongest, I survived because I forgave." A tear slipped down her cheek. The prince reached for her hand. "And forgiveness," she said, "is the sharpest sword of all." The crowd erupted in cheers, clapping, stamping their feet to the rhythm of her words. The river's redemption as dawn painted the horizon pink, Adana walked to the river once more, this time not as a victim, but as a queen. She removed her royal sandals and stepped barefoot into the cool water. "The same river that tried to claim me," she whispered, "it now carries my peace." She bent low, scooping a handful of water into her palms. The reflection shimmered. For a heartbeat, she saw her mother's face again, smiling, proud, luminous. "Rest now, Mama," she said softly. "Your daughter walks in light." The water rippled, forming words that only her heart could hear. "You have turned sorrow into wisdom, my child. Now guide others as I guided you." The ripples faded, leaving only calm water behind. The price of envy far away, beyond the hills of Udi, a lonely hut stood in the shadow of the forest. Inside, Imama Neka sat in silence. Her once bright eyes had grown dull, and her laughter, once sharp, had long since died. Every night, she woke to the sound of rushing water. Every paddle she passed reflected not her own face, but Adana's, peaceful, unbothered, unbroken. At first, she screamed and shattered the mirrors. But soon she stopped. There were too many reflections, and breaking them changed nothing. Neka, her daughter, stayed by her side, quieter now, wiser from sorrow. One night, she whispered, "Mother, perhaps the gods gave us this so we can learn. Perhaps envy is the real river that drowned us." The woman said nothing for a long while. Then, with trembling lips, she nodded. "And may it drown no one else." Years later, the kingdom of Udi flourished under Queen Adana's reign. Roads were built, markets expanded, and festivals of gratitude replaced contests of vanity. But more than wealth, the people remembered how she ruled, with patience, justice, and the humility of one who had faced the depths and risen stronger. Children were taught her story at moonlight gatherings. Griots and storytellers carried her name from one village to another. Some said when you stood by the river on quiet nights, you could still hear her laughter mixing with the water's murmur, light, free, alive. And the people told their children, "Do not let jealousy make you cruel. Do not let fear make you blind. For what you try to drown may one day rise to rule over you." The dance reborn on the anniversary of her coronation, the prince, now King Obina, arranged a grand celebration in her honor. The courtyard overflowed with life. Drums boomed, flutes sang, and torches glowed against the dusk sky. "Your Majesty," the king said with a grin, "shall we dance once more?" For old time's sake. Adana laughed, her voice warm as sunlight. But this time, no magic, she teased. He smiled. No magic needed. You are magic enough. They danced beneath the stars, the same stars that once watched her cry by the river. Every step was a promise, every turn, a triumph. The people cheered, chanting her name in rhythm, Adana. Queen of Light. Adana. The river's daughter. And though she danced as queen, she carried in her heart the spirit of the girl who once fetched water with bare feet. Destiny's final words. When the music faded, she turned to the crowd, raising her hand for silence. My people, she said gently, remember this, rivers never forget what they carry. The same way truth never forgets where it belongs. No matter how long darkness reigns, morning always returns. Just like the river returned me. She smiled, her eyes shining. Let no heart drown in envy. Let no spirit sink in hatred. For destiny, she paused, looking skyward. Destiny may be delayed, but it can never be denied. The crowd erupted in applause, voices echoing into the hills, blending with the rhythm of drums and the laughter of children. And as the final echoes faded into the night, the river of Udi shimmered softly, as if bowing to its queen. The moral: no matter how deep jealousy hides, light will always rise again. Truth cannot drown. Love cannot be silenced. And destiny, though delayed, will always find its way home. So, my people, what lesson have we learned from Adana's story? That envy destroys faster than fire, that forgiveness heals deeper than time, and that destiny, no matter how buried, will always rise to the surface. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that truth never loses. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Adana's place? Would you forgive, or would you let the river take its revenge? Until next time, my friends, keep your heart pure, your spirit strong, and remember, destiny always finds its way home. Crescent Moon.